Lions fans, it's time for the podcast you've been waiting for. The show where Kool-Aid runs blue, faces turn red, and rose-colored...
Gonna restart.
Lions fans, it's time for the podcast you've been waiting for. The show where Kool-Aid runs blue, faces turn red, and rose-colored glasses never go out of style. This is the Detroit Lions Podcast, your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection. And now, two guys who have never dropped a Matthew Stafford pass, Chris and Case.
You're damn right we haven't. Hey, hi-ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions Podcast, episode 251. This is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit. I am your dashing host, Chris, and with me is my good friend and co-host, Case. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, you know, it's been kind of a struggle. I keep getting sick this winter. I think I might have come down with that Kung flu.
Ooh, not a good one, buddy. That's got to see where that's going. We'll see. But in the meantime, while we determine your status and situation with the Kung flu, as it's called, we're going to talk about the Senior Bowl. Got a good recap on what happened. You guys missed our coverage. You really missed out. So definitely check out our coverage, youtube.com/DetroitLionsPodcast. Got a ton of stuff we talked about this week. We interviewed some people, Lions coaches, all kinds of other great people. Good stuff to see. We'll talk about that and some other stuff, some other takeaways. We'll also talk a little bit about Richard Sherman. He has a couple things to say, and we don't know if it's good, bad, or ugly. We have an opinion, though. So we'll tell you what we think. Also, we're going to do our favorite segment, our favorite news segment, a deep dive into the shallow end with Case on free agency. I should make an audio intro for that. I should make a little something like the dubstep drops. We'll figure
Splash. Ow! I'll do the owl.
You've got a good owl. Also, we're going to talk about some trade down scenarios in the draft. Got a great piece by Eric Schlitt out there. We're going to talk about that and some of his thinking and all kinds of other stuff. It's a great show. Case, you ready to go, my man?
Everybody was Kung Fu fighting.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
You owe me for that one.
Oh, God, I do. I really do. All right, as usual, a couple of quick announcements for you guys. Please check us out and help us out on the Patreon. Special thanks to Dylan from... You've been building those up, man. Of course, our very first donor, Mathis, and Brian Burkheiser from iPrevailBand.com. Check them out. You can join all the fun with Riz, Chris, Case, Sandman, all the cool people by hitting the Patreon, Patreon.com, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. If you give as little as $1 a month, you can give more, though. We appreciate more. That's how we get to do these Senior Bowl coverage and stuff. But you give a little more, we appreciate it. And even $1 is good. You get access to the Slack, the coolest, most intelligent Lions chat on the internet. And I ain't lying. Everyone gets in there, and it's the absolute truth. We do an occasional pre-show show. There's all kinds of insider information. People get to see stuff that others don't. You get it ahead of time, all that kind of stuff, because you are very, very special to us. You're all special, but the Patreon, some are more special than others, right? Is that what? Animal Farm, whatever. Anyway, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Get in there and help us out. We love you guys for all the help you've been given. Also, check us out on Facebook and Instagram. First post on Instagram today. Don't miss it. It's Detroit Lions Podcast on Instagram. On Facebook, go to facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast. You can get on our page there. And of course, on the Twitter machine where all the hot action happens at DET Lions Podcast. DET Lions Podcast, the very best place to see Case.
Rocking a Speedo in that shallow end.
Woo! Again, subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Get instant information by subscribing and ramming that bell. What else would you do with it? And it'll give you the notifications when we go live, which is going to be more and more frequent as we go. We had a lot of success doing that remote at the Senior Bowl, and got some good stuff otherwise coming for you guys. Rate us, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all those places. We're not going to read you any reviews. We know what you wrote. You can read it if you want it, but we love those reviews. They're forever. 5 stars, if you would, please. And of course, if you have any constructive criticism, hit us up on the subreddit. We're more than happy to discuss anything about the show. Lastly, give us a call on Skype. Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast, or call us on the Lions line at 929-33-LIONS. It's 929-335-4667. Leave us a message and get a chance to hear yourself on the show. Let's do this.
Tighten your chin straps, kids. It's time to review This Week in Reddit.
All right, it's time to talk about the fun and exciting things going down this week in Reddit. And that's hard to say slow. It's easier to say fast, I found. Okay, so I just blast through it and get it done. First thing we're going to
do these live, it's like you seem to be hitting on them every time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I've been officially
Instead of having to redo them like 20 times.
Imagine.
Behind the curtain.
Under the kimono. Anyway, we can do a recap on the Senior Bowl because I know we had a lot of coverage, but had a little time to think about some of the stuff we saw and some of the interactions and kind of reflect on them. And think about that, and we got an opportunity now to let Case interject with his pieces as well. So it'll all be new content. Don't worry about that. Some themes though will continue, and you'll be able to hear those. And then after the Senior Bowl recap, we'll go deeper in some other stuff here. But first off, Senior Bowl, what a great experience! I have to first and foremost thank the Riz and also Sandman. Guys were just absolutely fabulous. I couldn't have had two better people to do that with, and love you guys so much. Thank you guys very, very, very much. Loving that stuff, and we had a great deal. The first day we had a little bit of an audio issue because the internet that I paid you ready for this for 10 up and down speed, right? Paid $65 a day for it, and it didn't work on day one. So thank you guys. Anyway, that first one was a little messed up. After that, it was cool. We got a lot of good stuff. I'm going to talk about some things. First one is game's over now. We saw the Senior Bowl game. We were there all week. Day one, first practice, I'm sitting there. I watched the Bengals crew do their practice. They were first on day one. The other two practices, the Lions were first, and the Lions went second. Bengals practice was always just low energy as hell, man. They only used half the field most of the time. There wasn't a lot going on. And it was really interesting to see that because, okay, we're seeing a practice. It's fine, whatever. And then the Lions came out, and they had the guys hustling. I mean, the problem was it got cold. And then the first day, it dropped down to that night to like everybody was like, Frank, now my balls are cold. When I fell through the ice fishing. It was really bad. My feet didn't warm up for 2 days after that night. But so the press was getting angry already. And then the way Patricia runs the practice, he ran it just like he does training camp. He basically broke the field into 4 quadrants and had people running around. They were running in between reps, and when they're moving from drill to drill, they were running. There was conditioning involved. Basically, what Patricia did is ran an NFL practice for these guys. And frankly, that's good for the players. I mean, that's an opportunity for the players to get that level of experience at what a practice in the NFL is like. With the cold and the running back and forth, I talked to other members of the media. Incidentally, none of the Detroit media had this problem. None of the beat writers. I talked to Justin. I talked to a whole bunch of Burkett. Talked to a whole bunch of people. Not one of them had a single problem with how practice was run. Just so you know. But the national guys that weren't from Detroit, one of them said he's running back and he's running forward and he's going down. Fuck that! I am going back and forth. I'm not doing it. I'm not running back and forth. It's like, okay, so you're entitled and you're not doing your job. Great, okay. But then they decided they were going to complain about it and so on. And I'll just kind of fast forward to the game. 34-17, proofs in the pudding, right? The coaching for the boys worked. It was an excellent game, and the staff came away. You saw during the Senior Bowl the interview with Matt Patricia where he talked about getting in good with the Reese's guy and that kind of stuff. It paid off.
Yeah,
well.
that was funny.
I'll tell you what, Patricia was like that all week. I'll talk about when I met him. Really cool, down to earth, chill guy. It was a great week for the coaches, and this is an opportunity I think for our coaching staff. With a bunch of new guys, a couple new guys coming. We'll talk about a new guy here shortly. To get some reps in together as a coaching staff, right? In a place where it doesn't matter, we could kind of make mistakes, but guys that instead of having to come together on the field for the first time with the team, get a chance here to do it on the outside. It was really good to see these guys, and I have Hank Fraley. I have particular love for him, and I've got a bunch of videos that I still have to get together and get on the YouTube channel. I've got a bunch of Hank Fraley individually working with these guys and coaching them, and it's funny because he's down there, he's talking to them, right? He's not yelling, but he's working with them, helping them work on technique up and down the offensive line. Every guy got individualized time on almost every rep with Hank, and then from the other side of the field, you'll hear a massive expletive explosion from Patricia, right? Yelling at somebody else, right? But Hank Fraley was right there with those guys. I was really impressed with what he's bringing as an O-line coach to these guys. I think he's gonna be really good for this team this year. I think he's really got as a former player, a real smartness about him and how he coaches. I was blown away by how well he handled himself. So anything you wanted to roll in on the coach or the game itself there, Case?
No, we're not unfamiliar with the media not being particularly fond of the way Patricia does things. And we don't need to go too far in depth with any of that right now. I don't think anything I would say about it at this point would change anyone's opinion until there is or is not success. But it's not a surprise, is
Right.
what I would say. It's not
Right.
a surprise that the media went after him a little bit.
Yeah. I got a couple questions coming in on the chat, and I'm going to tell you guys, we'll hold off. I'm writing them down. We will hit those very shortly when we get down to some draft information we're going to talk about.
Sure.
So hold tight, guys. Also in the Senior Bowl, we were able to interview wide receiver coach Robert Prince. Now, this is not Ron Prince.
Right.
Very
That
much,
scared
right?
me when you said that.
Yeah.
I was like, he's back?
yeah. And so we were
Maybe he's
punching
better with the wide receivers.
We were
I don't know.
punching ourselves in the face. Don't mess this up, because you're two completely different guys. They just have similar names. And I kept screwing up. Like before he got there. He got there. We did it. It was all smooth and great. When we did the closeout show, Sandman was the one that blew it. It was great. But great interview with Robert Prince. Here's a couple things about that interview, for those who have seen it or those who haven't. Number one, Robert Prince is a man of intensity. I'm going to tell you, you could just feel the intensity sitting there with him. Now, in addition to that, it was about 8:00 when we did the interview. We were between him and dinner. And it was supposed to be a small dinner, but everybody was going to dinner, the whole staff. So it was like one of those things where he was like, oh, God, he wants to eat. He knows he's got all this going on. And our interview was the last thing he was doing before dinner. So he was like, he's ready to go, right? But he also never interviews. And this was the first time he'd ever been on a podcast. And then we said, oh, by the way, we got cameras. He's like, oh, there's cameras too. He was nervous about it, right? So now there's a nervous intensity with a guy who wants to go and eat, right? So it was interesting. He was really forthcoming. He was a super, super cool guy, great to talk to, but he comes off as very like short in the interview for all of those reasons. But he did a great job, and we've been able to build some good relationship over time. So I expect to see some more stuff like that from other players and coaches and stuff going forward. I think this was beneficial for everybody involved. So great interview, great information. He tells an awesome story about Calvin Johnson and coaching Calvin Johnson and the lasting effect he's had in the locker room with the wide receivers. So definitely go check that out. Did you have anything on that? I forget. We don't pre-do the show, right? So we just gotta say, hey, we got a couple bullets
Move
to talk
on.
about. Okay,
Next topic.
Matt Patricia, we posted our first Instagram post finally for all the folks that followed, waiting to see what it would be. Got to meet Mr. Patricia, and he could not have been a better guy. Now, I will be honest, we did have cookies at our table when that happened, but the cookies aren't what sold them. They were a good conversation starter, though. But he was awesome.
We're bringing Reese's next year, though.
And don't need to. They've got plenty. those. Yeah. He was absolutely fabulous. Just the most gracious, wonderful guy. He interviewed with the radio station at the table next to us. They had Hooters Girls and Wings, which they used to bribe him to come in. I have video of that interview that we pulled, and I'll see what I can do about putting that together and kind of sharing that with everybody on the YouTube channel as well. But it's like a side shot. Like they're at the table next to us, so I just turned the camera and started rolling, right, just to see what we would grab. And there's us talking in the background and stuff. So we'll see how it comes out. Good stuff though. Coach was great. He was the same kind of relaxed self that you saw on the sideline in that interview all week. He has an intensity during practice. Right, he has language that he uses. It's very similar to us. I mean, we're just naturally, salty a little bit in our language. It's okay, but I didn't find it to be problematic. So Patricia was great. Check out the Instagram post, Detroit Lions Podcast. We're there. Give us a follow. Last thing I will reiterate. This might be for folks that were really tuned in tight to our coverage. KJ Hill. I am telling you, and Coach Prince mentioned KJ Hill as well. He impressed the shit out of me as a slot receiver, and you didn't see him play much in the game. He was like a lower round kind of a guy that you're looking at a late round wide receiver. In practice, he outdid just about everybody on the North team with regularity. You saw some great plays from Mims and stuff, but KJ Hill has this, and Sandman just encapsulated it when he said suddenness. When he makes a cut, there's 5 yards between him and whoever's on him. And it's funny because Zebra Technology, the guys who do the sensors and the pads and stuff, they share the data with us, and we've got an ongoing relationship with them. As a matter of fact, I didn't tell you about that case.
Ooh,
we're going to get some
fun.
really, really good data throughout the year and throughout the off season, and we're setting up an interview with them and the Lions at Lions training camp during during training camp. So we'll have something like that going on as well.
You mean they're not going to try to kick us out again? Or?
Not this time. But KJ was the slowest wide receiver, the second slowest wide receiver, of every wide receiver on both teams. But he got separation like you wouldn't believe. The fact that we didn't see him much, he did a kick return a couple times, but they had great coverage. He didn't get to do a whole lot or show a whole lot. I'm wondering if the fact we didn't see him is kind of a little bit of a smokescreen of control, not letting him show what he really has to kind of hopefully downplay his stock a little so that we can pull him out in the third or fourth round. A third round seems high, even fourth maybe, but he really, really comes off as a competent slot guy. And if Amendola's going where Brady's going, like the rumor's hitting today, I would absolutely love to see this guy. He reminds me, his separation and his suddenness reminds me a bit of Golden Tate. And I think this kid's going to be a real force.
Well, I just watched some highlights of his today, and, I saw the same thing. I'm always careful not to say this guy is the next Golden Tate because Golden Tate's special.
Right.
And we're actually going to talk about him a little later. But I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, he's incredible. Good kid. Look to see a lot. It's funny, I laugh because both years I fell in love with a wide receiver from Ohio State. Last year was Terry McLaurin, and I feel like I hit that one. So hopefully I can hit 2 in a row. Let's see. All right, that's the recap from the Senior Bowl. Really quick, got to let you guys know that we're doing everything we can to make this show great, and you can help us by going to Amazon. But don't just go to Amazon. Go to amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. That'll take you right to the Amazon place. You won't notice anything happen, but you had a little cookie set along the way, and Amazon then knows that, hey, Chris and Case sent you. Let's take a little bit out of Bezos' pocket and put it into the Detroit Lions podcast pocket, which is the best way to go. He doesn't need it. He doesn't pay taxes on it. We do. So head on over to Detroit Lions Podcast. Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com, and use that anytime you go buy anything from Amazon. We appreciate everyone who does that and helps the show out by using that link. All right. You can also, there's a link on the front page of the website. You can just go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com and click on the link as well. But the other one, Amazon.DetroitLionsPodcast.com, is faster. Let's talk about Richard Sherman. Have you heard about this guy? Have you heard of him before? You know what position he plays, what team he's on, all that kind of stuff?
Explain it to me.
Okay. Richard Sherman, San Francisco 49er, game-closing interception to take them to the Super Bowl. Seems like a pretty decent player. Seems like a pretty well-known name. Seems like a lot of teams want him. Reported that by him that he didn't like the Lions culture, and he didn't want to come to Detroit. And of course, as national media loves to do, and as Uncle Eddie Lions fans love to do, see, they don't like Detroit. Same old Lions. Voters won't win until the Fords are gone. All that crap, right? Colin, guy I know, he shared something with me that really opened my eyes a little bit, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I think, but before I do, actually, I want to let you kind of pop in, Case, and I think I blew my surprise for you, but go ahead.
No,
What's
it's
your
okay.
thoughts on this,
I don't know I still don't know what you're going to say, so I'm okay. It always sucks to be on the receiving end of those kind of rumors, talk, whatever. But it's in the league where, guys don't go to this place or that place for whatever reason. Sherman chose not to come to the Detroit Lions, even though they presented more money. I'm not 100% sure he was a fit here, but I don't mean that to sound like sour grapes about it, because I do think he's a wonderful player, and maybe it would have, and maybe we really missed out on something that would have elevated the team in a significant way. I'm not suggesting that I know how that would have panned out. I'm not 100% sure that particular move is the move that I would have wanted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I get that he didn't want to come here for a reason, but it isn't like other players haven't come here because they did want to be a part of that culture. Ashawn Robinson and Mike Daniels. Now, granted, neither of them had a great year. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I'm not even sure that's really part of the point. Like, we've had plenty of players come to Detroit because they felt like it was a fit.
Mike Daniels.
How can you, and Golden Tate and Stephen Tulloch and lots of players over the past 5 years, 10 years, do we hit on everything? Of course not. And I'm not trying to sit here suggesting we should be over the moon about all the player acquisitions we've had or not had. I'm not here trying to suggest that. But when it's a clear, like, hit piece type of thing where it's like, Detroit sucks, I didn't want to go there, that's not even what he said. He just didn't think it was what he wanted, and that's okay. I don't think I would enjoy working in an environment similar to what the Patriots run in terms of intensity either. I do, but I don't always enjoy it,
right. Yeah, no. I'm gonna pop on here just with a quickie. Hold on the calls. I see the call come in, and give us just a few minutes. We want to hit on a couple more topics here. We'll let you guys bring the calls in.
If you need to bring it back and touch an old topic, we can do that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so Colin, and I love him for doing this. He's a great dude. He was the St. Jude Ruth's Chris winner, who then paid for his own meal. It's like, dude, how awesome, man. Awesome dude. So anyway, he did some research and brought it and really showed me some stuff. So if you go back, he's got a Peter King article from Sports Illustrated from 2018. Okay, March 12th of 2018, as a matter of fact. And in that article, we have a couple things. Sherman, first off, he did his own negotiating, of course. Went through the contract, had stacked up a bunch of incentives. San Francisco, Lynch was talking about how well he negotiated. He had really done his homework and studied other contracts and all this. And they were really, complimentary because of course you are when you just sign a contract with somebody, but whatever. They worked some deals. And then so they wanted, San Francisco wanted the first right of refusal on the contract. Okay. So he's like, okay. So he called Seattle. Seattle said, no, those incentives are way too rich. He's like, okay. Then he called Oakland, who wanted him. And they said the same thing. Nope. We're not, those incentives are way too much. We're not gonna do this. Right? And then he called Detroit third. Same thing. Incentives are too much. We're not interested. Right. And then he talks about how San Francisco offered something that no one else could. A chance to play Seattle twice a year. And he's vengeful like that, he says, quote unquote.
I believe that.
This has nothing to do with culture in Detroit. And effectively, the article states that Detroit said, no, we're not going to pay that for you, Mr. Sherman. And that was that. So whatever motivation, whether it's, trying to get press, whatever else is going on.
Also not a shock.
It is right for type, right? It's another non-issue. I'm in when we're talking about real stuff, when we're talking about real issues or real situations. Yeah. But this kind of stuff, it's getting old, man. And the reporting out here is when we talk about how great so many of the Lions beat writers are, Case, it's so true. Burkett's good. Burkett's really good. I don't want to undersell him by just saying he's good. Justin Rogers is amazing, right? I mean, and I should say amazing for Burkett as well. But the thing about Justin Rogers is the just abject flatness, and I'm not talking about lack of personality, but the absolute just ride the middle of honesty and not cheering too hard, not cheering for failure too hard, right? I mean, he just reports.
He's very
straight
objective.
news.
He's very objective.
Really, really good job, and appreciate the heck out of that. Even on Twitter, he's very much the same way, right? He's not trolly or whatever. Two great guys, but across the line, the Schlitz pretty straight shooter. The rest of the guys are pretty well. We're really lucky in Detroit with what we have. But this kind of stuff, God, I'm so tired of it. I'm just so tired of these fake news. It just wears you out, and it's such a shady, stupid tactic now to drive narratives with these stupid stories like this. It's just it's exhausting, and it's the kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. You know what I mean? It's just stop this shit, please. So then,
and I mean, if you're gonna take a story about a guy who's known for creating drama, I agree with where Richard Sherman's coming from more often than not, but it is clear, and it has always been clear, that he says things specifically in a way to evoke something.
Yeah.
That's just his personality. So if you buy into that as like a thing to get upset about, you're buying it. It's no different than buying into a reality show that's somewhat scripted.
Are you saying that I'm buying it because I got upset about this? I didn't get like over the top upset.
Well, no. What I'm saying is, I mean, if you're looking at what he said and thinking, oh yeah, that's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there isn't some part of truth to it. I'm not saying that at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just that if you take that and you're one of the fans, and I know there are very many right now, and it's not, once again, I'm understanding of why everyone's frustrated. Don't misunderstand me. I'm frustrated too. 3.5 wins is not a place for me to sit here and say, don't be frustrated.
But don't be frustrated.
but if you hear something like that, that it doesn't mean anything.
There's something. So with extra pickles in the chat comes in. He's like, it's funny. There's no way Sherman wants to play press man all the time. He's 31. LOL. Right? I mean, there you go.
What did I say? Right. I don't know that I would have taken him because I'm not sure he was what we wanted. So if we'd brought him in here and tried to make him do a thing that he doesn't want to do, no shit, that would not have. I mean, I'm not saying it. There's no way it could have turned out well if he had, adjusted the way he wanted to do things. But come on, like that was a thing that was likely to happen. So
yeah. All right, move on. Another topic. We've given him enough airtime. There's this kid, Hockenson. Have you ever heard of him? Hockenson? Did I say it right? Jesus.
Did you say oxygen?
I might have. I'm not getting enough.
What have you been inhaling?
Not enough oxygen. But there's something.
Take a deep breath, Chris.
Take a deep breath. We're going to get the ball of oxygen. I'm going to do something with that this year. Hockenson got some high praise.
You may have just gotten a new nickname. Yeah. If he blows up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hockenson gets great praise from a Hall of Famer named Tony Gonzalez. He says TJ could be an All-Pro. And interesting when you look at their numbers, Hockenson and Gonzalez, their rookie season numbers are almost identical. I think they're like within 2 yards, and Hockenson has one more reception. Otherwise, they're like almost straight identical.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a couple of
future Hall of Famer TJ Oxygen is off
Oxygen.
And running. There's
I really do like that.
It's all right.
And there was a happy little accent.
I'll just put a little right there, a little Bob Ross.
No, and I mean the closer you look at the rookie seasons, the more they might actually look different, because you're talking about Hockenson, who started 7 games, but was also injured and missed a lot of time. And even when he wasn't injured, whereas Gonzalez didn't start a single game. But I'd have to fact check this, but I don't think he was injured his rookie season. So you're talking about a very different scenario under which they produced similar results. But I also think that just because they're different doesn't mean that Hockenson. I go back to where we were a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, around draft time. We all knew that Hockenson was the likely pick. I think pretty much, aside from the hope that Allen would fall to us,
right?
That Hockenson was the most likely pick.
It's Hoxygen.
Hoxygen. I do really like that. Okay,
what are you doing, baby?
But I do appreciate the similarities between the two of them athletically as well. Even I would even go as far as say I think Hockenson has a higher ceiling athletically. Now, if the second you say anything like that, people will say, "How could you possibly say this guy is on?" And I'm not. I'm not sitting here expecting a Hall of Famer. Tony Gonzalez is one of the greatest to ever play it.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, am I going to say that praise and him noticing the things that TJ Hockenson is doing is totally not relevant or not a good thing? Of course it's a good thing. He sees something of himself in TJ Hockenson.
And he offered to train with Oxygen over the offseason. Awesome. And Oxygen on Twitter accepted. I'm going to stop calling him Oxygen for now.
We'll go back. Remember, was it
with Woodson,
Marvin Jones and Slay? Marvin Jones practicing with Randy Moss and Slay with. I mean, we've seen some of these things before, and we actually saw a thing, and we'll I think we're getting into this later with Slay and a possible future player. But I mean, we've seen some of that stuff, and it can produce positive results.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be good. It'll be excellent. And the worst case scenario, Hockenson's going to come out being a great announcer for Sunday pre-games. All right. Let's see. We'll keep rolling here. We got a lot to talk about. Let me see here. So Ken in the chat, he already got his Hockamania shirt, but he's like, "Oh, new tee." We do have some new tees, some new hats, some beanies, some trucker hats, some other stuff going on. We got a new logo we've been playing around with a little bit. Check that out. We got some good stuff in the store, and probably soon a Oxygen shirt will be showing up as well.
He's in the air. He's everywhere.
He's in the air.
It's Oxygen. Excuse me. I'll work on it.
So we got some great merch. Head on over to DetroitLionsPodcast.com and go to the merch store. Also, if you're looking for the official Lions or Red Wings or any kind of sporting gear, college or whatever, head on over to fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Fanatics.DetroitLionsPodcast.com is with the Amazon one. They give us a little kickback on that, and it's a good time. All right, that's a great way to support the show by doing something you were going to do anyway. A lot of stuff going on in the background. All right, let's see. Before we do this deep dive into the shallow end, I think I want to cover some breaking news if you're okay, buddy.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. Tease tape board, interesting. There's some news out there that the Titans have parted way with Coach Tyrone McKenzie, linebacker coach, and knowing about this guy, there's some tweets. It's not finalized. There's not an official announcement yet, so I don't want to necessarily be a purveyor of fake news, but I do want to tell you that it looks like Mr. McKenzie, Tyrone McKenzie, is going to be coming to the Detroit Lions as our linebacker coach. That's the intense rumor going right now. Here's a guy's got experience with the Pats, right? As he played under
which
Patricia.
Is going to thrill and draw vitriol from whichever camp that you happen to.
There's more to this though. He's got experience with Vrabel as coach and Patricia's a player. Also been outside the system though. Similar to Unlin, he worked under McVay as a coach, and he also played under Raheem Morrison Raheem Morris and Leslie Frazier. So he's gotten a broader view. It's not strictly Pat's way only. So for the folks that want to freak out about that, no need to freak out. This looks like an extremely good pickup. Chris Robbins, you see him in the chat right now, freaking out. Woo! He is off the hook excited about this. It really does look like a good pick as far as coaching. I like what we've done here. I'd love to hear a comment from Vrabel, because the madder he is, the happier I think I'm going to be. As much as I like Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, I've got no problems with him. But when somebody leaves your organization, you're like, well, shit, I can't. I wish I hadn't lost him to somebody else. That's a good sign.
One thing I wanted the Titans to make the Super Bowl so bad.
It would have been fun. I was rooting for him.
But beyond that, it really would have made this sting just a little more. I have to own that I did say earlier in the season, before superstar Ryan Tannehill took the helm over there, that if the Titans kept going the way they were, there's a possibility that Vrabel got fired if we could pick him up. And after that, we didn't win a game, and they went on to the conference finals.
Fucked up.
Yeah, I was so wrong. I gotta own it. That's one thing we do, right? When we're right or we're wrong. Boathorn comes in, we own it. I was wrong. I wish I was right, but I was wrong there. So there we go. So we'll see on the McKenzie thing here, and hopefully it's real and true. Okay, so we're gonna get into this. We don't have an opener for a case. I do like a drum roll.
We're gonna work on one.
Let's see. I can get something. Okay, we'll just start off with a little bit of Billy Sims.
Go Lions!
There, that'll be the opener. A deep dive into the shallow end with Case on free agency. Take it away, my friend.
On the Detroit Lions
Podcast Network. Oh, broadcast show. The Detroit Lions broadcast show.
Thank you.
Sorry. That was slow.
No, I'm not taking a huge step forward this week on this particular project. It's just a glance at some maybe talent that might be getting cut due to cap restrictions in the NFL. So just some names to put in the back of your head. Some of this also relates to a possible future player we're going to talk about later. But free agency, determines a lot of what a team's needs are in the draft. I don't think that's, mind-blowing to anyone.
Right.
It comes first, and it is probably more significant in that year than the draft is, just because, players who come in as rookies and blow the league up as rookies, that's rare. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare. It's also very unpredictable. Even the top tier guys, like even Chase Young, could come in and have a very quiet year. You know what I mean? Like would that blow anyone's mind? No, probably not. But so we're looking around the league. I'm looking around the league a little bit, and I'm hoping to get more information from more sources as time goes on. But I'm just kind of scanning and seeing who some players that might fill some potential holes on this team might be.
Sure.
And that comes down to a lot of teams. A lot of teams have issues with cap space this year, and two of them happen to be within our division. So we'll mention both of them, I believe, here, although I'll have to double check. One position of need, theoretically, depends on how you feel about things, is cornerback, at very least depth. Now, as I said, we'll get into Okudah later. But if they felt they wanted to try to get a vet in and rehabilitate, there's a couple of faces that might be available. Not
like who?
Any degree of certainty. Well, there's Vernon Hargraves.
All right.
He is not played up to his $9.9 million contract.
He's coming at a discount.
Well, he would be a player that we brought in and hoped he did better than he did last year. But that's not that's an okay thing. you can bring in a player that didn't have a great year last year, especially if they were, or even the last 2 years, especially if you can identify as a team why that wasn't working. And if you think that you can bring them in and work with them. He's just, he's a guy who would probably come relatively cheap, would be a veteran presence. Maybe not a solution, but still someone to think about. None of the players I think I'm going to mention, well, with possibly one exception, none of the players I think I'm going to mention in this little segment are guys that are going to get people overly excited. So another big question for the Lions this offseason is the running back situation. Are we going to roll with the guys we've got with a okay, underperforming but okay group, or are we going to try to add at the top end? Are we going to try to add depth? Well, Tevin Coleman is likely to be available.
Right.
And if they were looking for strictly adding to the running back by committee type system, that might be a fit. And he's likely out of San Francisco just because of they would save almost $5 million from cutting him. So it's a thought. It's a thought. Okay, so this one's a little bit further out there, but it kind of depends. I think one of the biggest questions that we're going to have to answer as the offseason goes on is, where are we with our wide receiver core? We know that prior to the season, we came into the year thinking this is a complete garbage heap. We like Marvin Jones when he's healthy. We don't know if he'll be healthy. And he was fantastic. Mm-hmm. We really like Kenny Golladay, but he'll be on his last year. Yeah, his last year.
I believe
so. So we don't. Amendola's a UDFA. Hall obviously flashed a few times, but are we?
No, we're not betting the farm.
Serious about. So, what do we need to do this year with wide receiver? And there's two guys that this applies to. One of them is Will Fuller from the Texans. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He is special, not world-breaking. It would be an interesting type of player to see what could be done with Stafford. And the Texans may end up cutting him with approximately a $10 million savings. They would then have a huge amount of cap space to do a ton of things with. Now, it also wouldn't be surprising to see them give him an extension. So these are all super hypothetical. These are not my predictions of who's going to get cut. These are
sure.
But if he did get cut, then you've got a deep threat that you can set on the opposite end to Kenny Golladay if Marvin Jones is breaking down. And this is not me jumping off the Marvin Jones boat, by the way. I will be happy if they continue to keep him around, because I think he has multiple uses that are effective and if he ended up as our number 3 wide receiver, I'd be 1,000,000% fine with that.
Yeah.
But so there's that. There's also a very familiar name, and that is Mr. Golden Tate.
I've heard of him before. What does he play? Wide receiver?
A little bit. He also plays a little bit of running back sometimes.
Oh, wow.
But I lost my page here. But
does he ever do kick returns?
He does. He did have. It's probably a larger amount of money. He signed a 4-year deal. I think it was just last year, but because of his injury and the performance enhancing drug suspension, the Giants can void all of that, mm-hmm. which makes him a prime candidate for being cut because he's a little bit older. It's a lot of money if they choose to keep him on, because then I don't know how much of that guarantee comes back to being guaranteed if they choose to keep him on, but it would make some financial sense. And has there ever been? Oh, this is going to be controversial, but I'm not 100% sure that Golden Tate didn't have better chemistry with Matthew Stafford than Calvin Johnson.
Oh no, I don't think that's controversial.
No,
I think
I'm not
Calvin
saying
Johnson was
better,
a physical freak, right? That gave him advantages.
And I'm not saying they had
ways.
bad chemistry either.
Right. But no, I can see that. I don't think that's. I mean, look, you'd have to be able to see gradients rather than black and white for that to not be controversial. So there'll be some folks there that kind of get riled up, but that makes sense. It makes good sense.
Now you can ask a question if there's any bad blood there between him and our offensive coordinator, and I don't know the answer to that.
I'll share one of the things that was really interesting that Robert Prince said about Calvin and his lasting effect in the locker room was he was a guy that didn't stand there saying, "Give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball." And he laughed because every wide receiver is always open and never covered, right? But he said when Golden got here, he saw Calvin sitting there and he wasn't saying, "Give me the ball, give me the ball." So he was like, "Well, I don't think I can say, give me the ball, give me the ball." So he didn't, right? And then when Calvin left and Marvin came in, it's like, and Galladay came in, it's like, well, no one's here saying, give me the ball, give me the ball. I guess I can't say, give me the ball. It kind of changed the way the wide receiver room worked and the way that the players worked. And it created a different kind of gestalt there that seems to be working pretty good for those guys and good with, God, I use that word every episode. Now I need a thesaurus for the word gestalt. How about that? But it's just changed the thinking in the attitude in the room. So that's really interesting. To be able to bring that back again with somebody like Tate and him have that expectation when he steps in the room, that would really be interesting. I think and he is a little aged, right? Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see how
we had an aged slot receiver this last year.
We'll see what happens. But no, it's good. He definitely had great chemistry with Stafford and never wanted him to go, right?
I mean, obviously and just in case.
We're losing your mic there, Case. This is the Case's laptop issue. You may have to unplug and replug, buddy. Go ahead and do that. I'll do while you do that. Actually, I'm going to do a quick break. We'll get back to this, but we had something we wanted to cover. I don't hear you at all. This was with Hugh Jackson, and I got to tell you guys a story. So when we were in the Senior Bowl, we were there with the Riz. I was there, and Sandman came late Monday. I was with Riz. I got there at like 8 in the morning. I had to leave the house or wake up at 2:10 in the morning to go. I'm in the car before dinner with Riz, and he gets a call, and his brother-in-law passed while we were there, and it was there you go, you're back. It was horrible to be in the car and hear that, and it was sad and really felt bad, and so Riz had that on his mind all week and getting ready, and he had to change some plans when he left and to go to the funeral and stuff, and wound up being okay, and he was still able to do all his obligations in the Senior Bowl and stuff, but he had that going on. Also, during the week, Riz's mom went under the knife, had to get some surgery, and there was, just fear in the family. She's not a young lady, right? I'm sure she's as beautiful as she's ever been, but she's not a young lady, so there's some nervousness amongst the family there. So they had these two big events going on while he's out of town. He couldn't do anything. It was to help. It was a lot. So Sandman came up with this idea, and it's all credit to him. But I helped to make it a reality. I just did my little part. This is mostly Sandman's doing. But for those on the YouTube, you'll be able to see the video. For the folks on the audio piece, you'll just get the audio on it. But check this out. I think this is absolutely fabulous. All right, let's see here.
Jeff, how you doing, buddy? I heard you've had a very, very tough week. Hey, man, tough weeks don't last. Tough people do. You're going to be okay. It could always be worse than what it is, and things will always get better. You got to believe that. And in order for things to get better, you got to truly believe that they will get better, because they will. That's just part of the process in life. We all deal with crap. We all deal with things that we don't want to deal with, but we got to find a way to come out on the other side. Because again, Jeff, at the end of the day, it's just one of those days. And I did it all for the nookie. That's what this thing is all about. It is just one of those days, and if you do it all for the nookie, you're going to always be okay. So, Jeff, chin up, shoulders back, head up, and let's go. Let's go face anything and everything head on. You can do this, and you will do this. Happy 2020, and take care.
All right. Okay, good. We couldn't hear the audio on our side for some reason. It wasn't coming back.
Just texted Chris. Was like, "Is this working?"
It is. Thank you for the folks in the YouTube confirming. And I'll drop that in post for the folks on the other side. Hugh Jackson, number one, giving Riz the pep talk, the coach's pep talk. But then there was a point during the week when Riz and Sandman, for an extended period of time, were talking to each other only using lines from Limp Bizkit songs. So we did it all for the nookie. It
Couldn't have been a very long conversation. But.
They were rolling, my friend. Oh God. So anyway, that was good. That was a fun message that we put together for Riz and thought we'd share, and we'll have some drops out of that for folks later, because I think there's some good stuff we can do with it. All right, Case, glad to have you back, my friend.
I'll finish off.
We had a good cover in there while you're gone.
Yeah.
All
that
right.
worked out. Okay, so couple of cornerbacks. I think both these are unlikely. It's the same idea as Vernon Hargraves. There's Janoris Jenkins. There's Jalen Ramsey. Obviously, if Jalen Ramsey did come available, that's a thing you probably want to at least attempt to pursue. Whether or not you think he works, that's a big part of how much you're willing to offer him. But I mean, once again, it depends on where they think. If they really have bought into Okudah, I'm pretty sure they can get him at number 3, then they don't need to do that. But if they also want to provide some insurance, because if they're not expecting Slay to be sticking around, you could have Okudah and one of these other guys, and hope that you've got a solid tandem going forward. So there's just a couple of names to pay attention to.
We got to figure out Okudah Matata. If we pick him up, there's a way to make that work with this defense. We'll figure that out. Mohamed
Sanu will likely be out of the Patriots. That would be more if we are comfortable with our top 3, which would be Kenny, Marvin, and whoever's in the slot.
Mm-hmm.
If we bring back Amendola and we're very comfortable with him, I mean, I'm okay with that. He is 34, but if we were just trying to pick up a number 4, Mohamed Sanu could be a guy that could fill that spot. I would prefer in the long run to see them get younger, a wide receiver, instead of having Kenny be the only guy under 30. But Leonard Floyd is a potential out in Chicago. I'm not sure that he's a fit, but he is the kind of guy, and I'm going to draw a comparison just in a vague way to Trey Flowers. He's not as good as Trey Flowers. He's not as consistent as Trey Flowers, but his stats so far probably not representative of how good a player he is. Whether or not there's a role for a down lineman in our 3-4, I don't know. I don't know if he's capable of being, utilized well in a 3-4 or not. But it would be an interesting, because you probably get him at a high but okay price, and that's a risk you take. And when you're in a situation in free agency where you need to add something to your team, you got to take a risk. And so he would be a risk that I would be not upset at this moment in time. Okay. These things can change if the Lions were looking at taking. One last little conundrum here. Okay, so the Jaguars are probably going to cut Marcel Darius.
Right.
But there's another player, and he's actually a free agent in the AFC South. And you could go either way if you wanted to. One is a much better long-term option, but is also less likely to be available. So there's Marcel Darius,
mm-hmm.
Who is an oft injured 30-year-old defensive tackle, good sometimes. Obviously, this last year was not great because he got hurt. And then there's DJ Reader of the Texans. DJ Reader of the Texans is the guy that I would like. He is, I believe he is an unrestricted free agent this year. If the Lions were able to go after him hard and get him and replace Marvin Harrison with him. And again, I haven't looked far enough into the specifics of exactly what he can do to know whether or not he can run, do what we do. So if I'm wrong about that fit, please go ahead and tell me, and I'll look deeper into it and whatever. But he can play nose, but he's also he's a 3-down defensive tackle,
right,
and very disruptive, and only 25 and about to hit the open market. And that all of those things excite me a great deal. He would be the equivalent to me of when we picked up Golden Tate, or when we picked up Stephen Tulloch, or, and those guys were both maybe even a couple years older than that. But it's that specific age range and growth level, and maybe not the premier name that you would expect, but somebody who is going to be, he has the trajectory that very much looks like he's going to be an above average player, very important player.
Did you
over
say
the next 5 years?
Did you say Marvin Harrison instead of Damon Harrison?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
I gotta thank the other Chris Robbins.
I don't think we ever had Marvin.
I don't think Marvin quite has the speed we need anymore. All right.
Neither does Damon.
Yeah.
But
Mr. Harrison, what a great NFL father, right? All right. So good stuff. Deep dive into the shallow end with Case on that. Had some.
We'll keep working on.
Oh, your voice just faded. You there, Case? Okay, you faded
here.
out. Okay.
I'm here.
Case is fading, folks. All right, let's talk a little bit about some trade down scenarios, if you're good with that. All right. Schlitt, as he always has a tendency to do, put together a really good article about 8 teams that could trade up with Lions for quarterback. One of the tricks to being a writer is to do lists with numbers. It draws people in. I'm going to say there's probably 3, and I'm not criticizing Eric here at all, but I'm just going to say there's probably 3 realistic ones here, and we'll just kind of walk through these really quick. He did a great job of organizing this and giving us a great kind of outline to talk to, as Eric always does. So don't miss this. He's got a great podcast. He does a lot of great work. I'm not here to give him a hard time at all, and it's okay to be agreeable when we disagree. Did I say that appropriately? Case that
I think so.
I can cover all my bases. Okay, so the first one is the one that everybody knows about. It's a team out of Miami known as the Dolphins. If you ever want to have fun with Riz, tell him how great a quarterback Dan Marino was. I watched him just shout a dude down. I mean, just shout.
Really?
Yeah, and
I feel like that's a conversation that he and I might have to have sometime.
Yeah. Oh, and he has got the numbers, and he went up, and look, the guy was not a guy I would expect to have Risden like shout down like that. I would have expected it to be a much more kind of conversation, right? But he just it was like, whoa. So anyway, here we go. Miami Dolphins. Don't pick Dan Marino. They got a couple of great picks that would be of interest. Okay, first is the.
I wonder what it feels about Namath, because we might have very opposite opinions on both of those guys.
Yeah, we'll bring it out. We'll bring it out next time, and we'll let we'll get a boxing bell, and we'll get things started. All right, the picks of note that the Dolphins have are 5, 18, and 26. I guess 39 as well in the second round. I feel like the Lions are going to want that first round, that number 5, and then a late first round pick to trade up to number 3. That feels like where things would be. Maybe they can finagle something else out of them.
And people suggesting that that's unrealistic in terms of what a team would offer. Do you not remember the more recent quarterback trade ups? And I at this moment in time when Tua is not, his stock is not as high, but neither was Trubisky's at this point in time. The quarterback stock will more often than not rise, which means that the price tag will also go up if we're in the market.
And look, there's a lot of teams. There's retirements happening, right? Phillip Rivers just now. We haven't heard about anything from the Saints yet, right? But I think they've got their guy, whatever, as a backup. So we'll see. But there's a lot of,
a little weirded out by it.
Yeah. There's a lot of teams, a lot of veteran quarterbacks that are, and then this year and next year are going to be retiring. And there's
finally, I feel like I've been saying that for 5 years, and now it's finally that they're finally starting to drop. But
so it's a good time, and maybe next year's a little better, but this year's not a bad time to have a number 3 pick. So you start looking at who wants to come. Right, Tua is a guy, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love. Jordan Love did himself some favors at the Senior Bowl. He looked good out there, and I got to tell you, at the Elephant Walk, that boy is ripped. He doesn't have your typical quarterback body. He was ripped. He has a tight body. Yeah, it was excellent. And just for those who don't know, I've got my notes here for this is the South team. I pull them up. You can see all the notes I got for players. It's a couple pages. The North team, they ran out of the paper. So I wound up having to do it on an Excel sheet and record it. It's crazy. So I have to get all my stuff together. So I'll have some better notes on the players and ratings as we go on here. But Dolphins, they need a quarterback. And the thing for them is, are the Giants going to take one? No. Are the Lions going to take one? Right? Is anybody in front of that pick going to take one? No. But the fear for them would be that somebody would move ahead. Right? And number 2 would be a position for them to trade to with the Giants. Right, there's a possibility there. I wouldn't get self-focused.
Also be fine with me.
Yeah. I wouldn't get self-focused that they would trade with the Lions. But the fact is, if they trade with the Giants, we don't get all those picks, but we get Chase Young.
Yeah,
which is if Chase Young is on the board.
I just said, earlier, like, I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to make any guarantees about Chase Young, but I'd sure as shit would I take
if
that. If
Chase Young is on the board, you don't trade the pick away. That he is probably one of the only players, at least in the Lions' current situation. I mean, Joe Burrow, you don't either, but oh god, you have a difficult situation. Other than Joe Burrow and Chase Young, you do not trade your pick away if one of those two is on the board for you. So Miami moves up to the Giants. That's okay. That's okay. We get a very, very powerful player at a much, much needed position, and I'm good with that. Right. You trade with the Dolphins, you wind up probably with Okudah, right? Okudah Matata, and I'm good with that. Right at number 5, I'm happy with that pick, because then you get another pick, and you can in a draft that has some really good talent, defensive line, you can fill that next. The other group, as we talked about earlier, Los Angeles Chargers, they're picking 6th, and they have a second at 37 that you could get. I feel like you'd want something more out of them, maybe a later round, but they don't have a whole lot of great picks. They have one at 71 as well. Phillip Rivers is no longer, he's done. He's moving to Florida. It's retirement time, right? He's done with the Chargers. They're going to want somebody there in 6. That creates a little bit of competition now between your Dolphins and your Chargers, because they're 5 and 6. The Chargers are going to want to get ahead of the Dolphins, right? And now you have the Dolphins getting nervous about the Chargers wanting to move ahead, and you can create some competition there. And that competition is what pays off. And again, though, with the more competition, I think the more likely they are to go to that number 2 pick rather than number 3. So that very well could put Chase Young in our lap. And that's kind of where my head keeps falling as expectations as this trade down scenario, as much as I'd love to get 153 first round picks, right? Then the third team I think that is a possibility, as I walk through Schlitt's article here, is the Carolina Panthers. Less of a possibility, but they've only got 1 year left on Cam. I've never been a huge Cam fan. I'm it is what it is. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I just haven't always.
I have a hard time seeing a future for him. It just has been sort of more or less downhill for the last
yeah. And they've got a 7th pick and 38th pick and 69th later as well. So there's a possibility there to work something out. I don't know that the Lions want to pick later than 7th though. So as Schlitt has the Raiders, their best pick is the 12th. You get the Colts at 13th, the Bucks at 14th, and the Patriots at 23rd, Saints at 24th. I don't see any of those other teams being really in the mix. I don't think they can give us any kind of treasure that a team that has to make the playoffs this year is going to want in exchange for that number 3 pick overall. So I would look to the Dolphins and Chargers and possibly the Panthers. The thing is, if the Dolphins or Chargers move up to number 2, right, that means the one that's sitting out and the Panthers could be in a little battle for number 3. So you get in a weird spot now with Chase Young there. You have to kind of take them, and you don't necessarily want to trade with those guys, but you could wind up with Okudah. And I'm going to tell you, people, you see people split on Okudah. Love Slay to death. I've said it a million times. I don't want people to get the wrong impression. Guy's living his best life, living a life like I wish I could live life. He's getting a little older, right? This is the last year of his contract. It's probably likely he's going to want more money than the Lions are willing to part with. But he'd be in a contract year, which means he's got to show up to camp. He's got to show that he's committed. He's got to show, because he's an older player. He's a vet, right? He's got to show that locker room presence. This has got to be a great year for Darius Slay. I think we're going to see great Slay playing this year for the Lions because he's thinking about next year and how big that check's going to be when he rolls out. That's good. You pick up an Okudah and you give him a year under Slay. You also got Oruwariye, who's got a year in already, and then and getting another year. If Slay is gone after next year, you got 2 years under Oruwariye's belt. You got a year under Okudah's belt with some good tutelage. I think you're in a pretty good position with those guys as primary corners for this team and as a go forward basis. And I think about that when we stared at Aaron Donald, but we had Fairley and Sue. Right, oh, we're fine, right? And it's been a cluster bomb ever since. So, as much as this defense relies on its corners to be top shelf corners, and Unlin may change that, right? There's an unknown there, right? There's a variable in the equation, but I think Okudah is definitely a valuable and viable pick for this team. It's just hard to justify that when Chase Young's on the board, right? Because that's an immediate impact player that you see. Exactly.
No, I will say that one of the few things that I think I know for sure about the way Patricia is going to run the defense going forward is that it will be focused on the secondary. Like the secondary comes first with him. Now, that doesn't mean you pass up a Chase Young. It just doesn't mean you pass up a Chase Young. Right. So
Chase Young fixes a lot of things and helps make your secondary a whole lot better.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Really quick, let's. We hadn't opened up the phones yet. Let's do that. If you guys want to give us a call, it's 248-782-8384, 248-782-8384. Or if you use Skype, it can be Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast. Give us a call. We're happy to take your call and have a chat with you about what's going on there. Questions that came in through the chat earlier that we promised we would answer, and we're not liars, so we will answer them. Chase Young. Is he better? Oh, yeah, Redskins it too. Sorry, Robbins. He's like our ombudsman today. I kept saying the Giants it too. It's the Redskins it too. Ooh, boy, it's been a long week already. All right, we got a call. We'll answer the Chase Young better than Bosa question next. Caller, what's your name, and have you had anything to drink on a Wednesday night?
Hey, this is Chris R.
Oh, the audience ombudsman. How you doing? Thanks for the correction so far. We've been relying heavily on your work today.
Yeah. So I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about two things that you haven't really talked a lot about on the show yet that are particularly related to the Senior Bowl. The first one is we talked about him a lot last week, and that is Javon Kinlaw. That kid is fantastic. He's one of those guys where if you move back a little bit further than the spots that you were talking about, your Carolinas at 7, say you move back again with like Cleveland at 10, who wants to move up for an offensive tackle. Like if we miss out on your Derek Browns, man, Javon Kinlaw would be a stud to have in this defense.
So I'm going to agree with you. Now, when we start looking at Senior Bowl performances. He went out with a sore knee. I get it. Riz's opinion was he did what he needed to at the Senior Bowl during those practices. My opinion's a little different. And I'm not down on him. Don't get me wrong. He just didn't jump out at me. He didn't impress with his reps in practice. He had one or two really good ones, but other than that, he was just a dude on the field. And again, he didn't have to be, right? He's got a different mindset than a lot of the guys there based on his skills and the tape he's already put out there. But I was, in the end, I was a little disappointed just because I wanted more out of him. I expected to see more. The notes I have on him, right, are amazing too. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at right now on Kinlaw.
So one counter to that is you talked about the practices that the Bengals run.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that would have been different if he were on the York team and working with our coaches. And maybe we would have gotten to see a little bit more out of him than, say, the Bengals coaches.
I will tell you, as I look at my notes here, right, and I go back from the elephant walk, a couple of things I had him. He's wide, right? You can just tell he was wide when he was standing up there. He's got good muscle definition. You can just see the power in this guy, right? Top to bottom, you just see him loaded with power.
Yep.
But I've got a little denotation, and I put it in place. It's guys that I felt they elicited Quintrest, as I called it. I was on the aisle. Across the aisle was one seat, and then one seat beyond that was Bob Quinn, and it was purposeful. I do this every year now. This is the second year in a row. So every year. I sit close to Quinn where I can see him, and I can see his reaction to players as they do the elephant walk, right? And I use that, and I just make a little mark, a little note annotation of myself. And there definitely was Quintrest when it comes to Javon Kinlaw. So again, I'm not down on the guy. Right, I'm just saying what I saw. He didn't stand out. It could have been the coaching. It could have been that he didn't really have a whole lot that he had to prove at the Senior Bowl. Him going out sore was kind of a bummer. I did see him blow 2 reps. But that happens. Everybody does it. So anyway, I just kind of want to. It's this one time that I saw the guy live. And 15 feet away, right, and was able to see him up close and personal and work. And the one time I did, I wanted more. I can't throw him out the door because of it, but I'm kind of trying to be objective when I think about this, right?
Yeah, of course. And obviously, there's still a lot of work and everything else that they do too. And I'm sure that all of us, including myself and yourself, still have a lot more tape-out work to do too.
Yep.
So if he actually becomes the more realistic option down the line, we can get to that going forward.
Yeah, no, he's a great pickup if we grab him. Go ahead.
And the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about too is I did a little bit of an article on this on the site. So plug the DetroitLionsPodcast.com.
This guy knows what's up.
Check out the written site.
Guy knows what's up.
But I also did an article about the Senior Bowl, and Matt Patricia looks much improved this year as a head coach. He is doing so many more different things this year from even what you guys were talking about, what ESPN and NFL Network were talking about. Like, he just looks like a much different coach than he did the first 2 years.
He carries
and there's a lot of specific areas.
He carries himself like a head coach now.
He's doing a lot better in.
Yeah. I mean, you can just see, you when somebody's in a role, they either really, really own that role, or you can tell they're working on it. You could tell he was working hard the last 2 years. Even Case, when we were at training camp this year, you could tell it was hard work for Patricia to do the job that he was doing in the press room, right? You just saw him; he was working hard at it, and he had the foot thing, right? The surgery and all that stuff going on, but the way he owned it. He owned it. There was a confidence that he had and a sense of understanding about the role. And that's one I've said it, and I'm going to say it a couple times. I'm certain through the off season, I'm really concerned about the ultimatum idea that he's got, because I mean, ownership has to know they're hiring a brand new head coach and they got a brand new GM, and there's a learning curve for guys like that. There's a learning curve for that's steeper than a cornerback learning curve, I'm telling you. And I would hate to watch these guys get trained up in Detroit and go find success somewhere else, because you can just tell they've got the right stuff, right? They've just got to put it all together. These aren't Jared Davis coaches, right? These are guys these are Darius Slay in year 2, right? I mean, I remember Darius Slay got benched at one point.
Yeah.
And now look at him out there. These are guys that I think are going to be superstars at what they do, and it would be silly to blow them out. I mean, if we go 2-14,
right? There is
okay.
This is not a black and white. I think as long as there is visible improvement, I think that is and should be the benchmark for whether or not
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really quick
And
in
like,
the chat, there's just a question in the chat. I got to get this for Ken. He says, "Are we ready to say Stafford makes his receivers better?" Different topic, I know. I think we said that way back with Chris Durham, who used to be his roommate, by the way. Because when Chris Durham was the number one receiver and Matt Stafford was putting up those crazy ass 5,000 yard a year numbers, yeah, he definitely makes his receivers better. Okay, sorry, Chris, go ahead and kick it out, man.
And yeah, like even just going back to like the coaching point, you could see visible improvement from the players that went to the Senior Bowl this year. Like Bradley and the beginning of the week, I would not have expected him to get 3 sacks in the Senior Bowl game.
Right.
Or Josh Uche, another guy, I think he had 2 sacks or something.
Yep.
Like another guy who wasn't really doing that in Michigan. He showed continued improvement over the week after working with our coaching staff. And that gives me hope not only just for Patricia, the head coach, but also like your Bo Davis and the constant improvement from the receivers like KJ Hill with Robert Prince. And like all the other assistant coaches that he's hiring under him are also continuing to grow and develop and seem to form a closer bond with each other than they had in previous seasons.
Yeah, I agree. This was a great opportunity, and I think the game ending the way it did, and them having the success they did, was one of the best things that could have happened to this coaching staff with this week. This week was so great for their growth. It was like an ultimate team building exercise. It really was, and I think they really came out ahead on this. This is really, really good for those guys. So good stuff. We'll see what this year brings. But if they wind up getting rid of Patricia after like a 9-7 year, these Detroit Lions will get what you fucking deserve. Sorry, I had to use my Joker drop. Love that movie. All right, anything else, Chris, really quick?
So those are the 2 main things I have for this week. I have a couple of things coming up before we get to the combine, but I'll save those for future podcasts. Those are the main 2 points while we're talking Senior Bowl I want to hit on today. So.
You got another article coming out here soon too, don't you?
Yep, I'm planning on doing one actually today on Okuda and Slay. I don't know if it'll be ready or not tonight, probably for tomorrow. So nice. I'm assuming weekend. But yeah, I'm going to plan on doing an article about like the Slay Okuda thing and maybe making Okuda my first job profile.
Ooh,
so we'll see.
Nice.
Be interested to look at that.
All right, Chris, thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it, brother. And thanks for the ombudsman work. We definitely needed it.
Yep, I got you. I'll be listening to the rest of the podcast.
All right, thanks, brother. We'll see you.
Yep.
All right. Russell the Love Muscle just showed up, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I think one of the things that
Case lives with Russell the Love Muscle.
One of the things that I think about.
Sorry, I can't get. You told me that.
You liked that, didn't you?
It really stuck.
Okay. One of the things that I can, I work, with in a kitchen, in a restaurant with a lot of people. And sometimes people let their emotions dictate how they talk about the other people in the kitchen, in the restaurant.
Like Russell the Love Muscle from Case.
Right. Absolutely. And sometimes I think that's all we're seeing out of the media from time to time. I mean, just compare it. Like think about it through that context for a minute. Somebody you feel has wronged you, even if they were just doing their job, but you feel they've wronged you, and how are you going to react to that? And sometimes
podcast with you every week. What are you talking about?
Right. Well, you have no idea the kind of awful things I say about you when we're not on the air.
Oh, I know all about them. You think they don't tell me?
Just I like perspective on things.
It's the rumor. That's what I hear. No, and I'll tell you one other thing. Just this is truth. There's a lot of talk. It's oxygen, definitely. there's a lot of talk at the Senior Bowl, and you know, it's all media. It's all media week there. You know, a couple guys from Dayton that were there to see Troutman and stuff, but it was the couple guys that played with him. They were fun to drink with, but it's media breathing their own air, talking to each other, and I have to Hockenpfeffer. I have to tell you, something came out from a media guy. I don't want to name him because I like the guy, but they were saying something. I was like, it's just absurd and ridiculous and terrible to say, right? And he said, yep, but it gets clicks. And it was absolutely 100% serious and had that wry smile.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys have to know, please. It's like the turkey hole thing when I went off about that, because a bunch of guys were sitting there in suits in the editor's room or in the production suite beforehand, saying, "All right, well, I could talk about the turkey hole. There's this thing we got," and they're like, "Oh my God, that's great! Oh, it's so edgy." And guys in suits had to approve it and all that, and then they dropped it, and they even they had a graphic ready for the turkey hole, right? If no one drew that graphic on the fly. They previewed this and got it censor cleared and everything else, and then treated it like it was like a super funny spur of the moment. It's dumb. The click thing is just as manipulative. And if there's something I hate more than anything, I hate when people try to manipulate me, right? It's why I hate most movies these days, and why I love the Joker so much, because the Joker was just so different and than everything else. It wasn't just the standard BS story. But anyway, don't manipulate me. I hate that. And folks that do that drive those things and wryly smile about it gets click and they write clickbait. That kind of media drives me insane. It's manipulative. It's cheap. It's worthless. It's worthless, right? It's just stop with that. I wish we could just erase that from the world. There's nothing more horrible than stuff that just goads people in because it's BS, and then gets them to click on it, and then starts a BS narrative. And then you have to sit there and say, well, I'm a sensible person, I can't talk about this, right? Because sensible people wouldn't believe something so stupid or outlandish, but here we are talking about stuff like that. Okay, sorry.
Now, Detroit Lions Podcast brought to you by Amazon.
There you go. See, but that's not clickbait. We're straight. We're honest.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time
because we don't want Bezos. He's got enough money. He should share it with us. We're like straight up, right? We couldn't be more honest. That's maybe our mistake. Maybe that's it. That's where we screw up. Hockamania, Dolo Dynamite. Don't worry about it. Head on over to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. The merch store there has a Hockamania shirt for you, just like Case is asking about. Okay, there you go. Okay, let's see. Let me go through the whole list of bullets here. Good stuff there from Schlitt. Thank you. A couple of important dates we need to cover. February 24th through March 2nd is the scouting combine. I'm not going to be able to make it. I got some work stuff that's getting in the way. More breaking news on that. March 18th, free agency begins. And the 16th to the 18th, they can begin negotiations with unrestricted free agents. So coming up here in a month and 2 weeks, a month and 2.5, 3 weeks, we're going to be.
That doesn't feel like long enough.
Oh, God, I don't know. We'll see. March 29th, April 1st is the league meeting in Palm Beach. I would love to go there. I'm hoping to have some time off. Again, we'll talk about that later. I would love to go down and visit Palm Beach. We'll see. April 23rd to the 25th is the NFL draft in Las Vegas. Hey, Casey, you up for a draft party?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah. Draft party 2020. We're doing it again, guys. And as always, we raise the bar so everyone else can follow later. So make sure you check it out. Get it on your calendar if you are not going to be somewhere. Or if you are going to be somewhere.
If I lie down on the floor at the bar, it looks higher up. Is that what we're saying?
I don't know that you've ever seen the bar any other way than lying on the floor.
Just trying to picture raising it up. If I lie down, it looks. Anyway, sorry.
Cases outside of the bottle jack. You all said you got to raise it. Anyway, all right. So yeah, we got some great stuff coming from the draft as usual. And then May 1st through the 11th, there will be 2 separate 3-day rookie mini camps for all the teams. Hard Knocks, Ryan is talking about. Yep, Hard Knocks is coming up. Lions have a chance. I have a feeling it's going to be Pittsburgh. And it's kind of where my head's at right now. We'll see how it goes. At this point, I wouldn't mind seeing the Lions after seeing how well they handled the Senior Bowl and the media with the pressure there. I think Hard Knocks.
I'm much less negative about it this time around because it is, situation is different. We'll talk about that later.
All right, so that's it. I think that's got it for this week. Is there anything else you want to talk about, Case?
No.
You sure?
No, I don't want to tell you about my lack of success on Tinder.
That was the pregame warm-up. All right. If you're going to get tickets to anywhere, go ahead and do that. Tix.DetroitLionsPodcast.com, Tix.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. That's it. All right. That's going to do it for this week. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for you all for giving us a listen. Keep your eyes on the YouTube. We got some good stuff coming to that. We got a lot of stuff coming on with that. As you can see on the YouTube now, you got Boudica there with Case. Let's see. With that, we're going to call it a week, and we're going to say, remember, we need your involvement when we do this. Use the comments in the subreddit. Give us your feedback. Make sure you give us those 5-star reviews on all of the aggregators. You know, your iTunes, your Stitcher, all those places. Also, don't forget about us on Patreon. You don't forget about us. We won't forget about you. Patreon.com/DetroitLionsPodcast. If you give as little as $1 a month, but you can give $1 million if you want, and anywhere in between, you get access to the Slack chat, the most intelligent Lions chat on the internet, and not one person has disagreed with that yet. Great place to talk Lions, great place to talk football, and we got some other channels: beer, barbecue, gambling, got a couple other topics that go on that you guys can sort through and have some fun with. Hi, Boudica. What else do we got? That's patreon.com/DetroitLionsPodcast. Check us out on Facebook. Facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast. Instagram, we got our first post up. If you guys missed it, you really missed out big. Instagram, it's Detroit Lions Podcast. You can see it. Go there and check that out now. Of course, on Twitter, where the hottest action happens at DET Lions Podcast. Get there and follow that right now. DET Lions Podcast, the very best place to see Case.
Taking a nice cat nap.
Give us a call on Skype, Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast, or call us on the Lions line, 929-33-LIONS, 929-335-467. We'll get you on the air. We'll leave your message. Also, be sure to go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com, check the articles, click the links, use all that great stuff, and subscribe to the podcast so we can blow through your ear holes automatically. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time on the Detroit Lions Podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, no problems. Because we're your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection. Woo! We did it. YouTube! You guys rock. Thank you so much for watching and hanging with us. Love the chat, guys. It's really awesome stuff. Keeps us going, keeps us distracted enough. Keeps us a little off topic, but it's great. Love it. Thank you all for checking it out. We got more stuff coming. We're hoping to keep the YouTube going and expand for you guys and like that medium. Has some good stuff for you. With that, I will bid you adieu, and we will talk to you guys later.